It had been desired for a long time. Money had to be saved. And one day, the Arco lamp finally arrives in 3 separate packages. One for the base, one for the stem, one for the dome. Assembling the Arco is very easy. The tube goes into the groove in the parallelepiped, a single screw. The 3 brushed steel sections are held together via a clever system of notches. They form an arc that slides to a stop inside the tubular stem. Threaded through the arm, the electric cord remains invisible. Hanging from the end of the arc is a gleaming aluminium dome. Made of an adjustable sphere with a perforated cap for cooling, it finishes off the lamp's gentle curving profile.
Lampe ARCO.
The Arco lamp could only have originated in Italy. The Italy of the Arco della Pace in Milan, of the geometrization of the 1930s, of the reconstruction boom that followed World War II. The Italian miracle was in full swing. Arco arrived just in time to satisfy the new consumer needs of the well-to-do. The dark hero Diabolique sneaks into a chic interior full of designer furniture. Arco entered the world of Italian pop culture as a status symbol. Arco was designed by the brothers Pier Giacomo and Achille Castiglioni in 1962, and despite changing times and trends, it has never gone out of fashion. And yet, it is as simple as 1, 2, 3. We were opposed to the invasion of drawing. We sought the minimum that was needed for the function. We wanted to be able to say, anything less would be impossible, said Achille Castiglioni.
Noi Castiglioni anche abbiamo cercato sempre di togliere e non aggiungere, ecco, cioè progettare togliendo ma mai aggiungendo. Ecco, mi ricordo che qualcuno diceva, a furia di togliere, come noi eravamo in 3 fratelli per esempio, e uno diceva, arriva uno, era mio padre che lo diceva, arriva il primo, toglie qualcosa, arriva il secondo, toglie qualcosa d'altro, il terzo toglie ancora, alla fine non resta più niente e loro sono tutti contenti.
A graceful curve, 2 meters in diameter, seems to be magically suspended in space. We could almost forget that it is firmly anchored on the ground in a white marble parallelepiped. It's a little stump, barely 55 centimeters high. Located 2 meters away from the user, it remains out of sight. There is nothing ornamental. Its edges are only beveled for reasons of safety. Even the hole is purely practical. It hides the screw and can be used for moving the base without having to take everything apart.
Eccola!
Plain and dull to begin with, the piece of marble is cut up, dressed, ground, smoothed, drilled, beveled, and to finish buffed and polished by hand. This process produces 14,000 bases every year, each one as lustrous and glossy as the finest palatial marble. Light moves over its surfaces, adding to the almost oily gleam of the polished marble. Reflected by the calcite crystals, light infuses the raw material with a radiant quality. The Castiglioni brothers chose to use Statuario and Gioia marble from Carrara, lightly veined with grey, a favourite of architects and sculptors since the days of the Roman Empire. Back then, it took a month and a half to extract the marble from the mountain before the sculptor could select his block. Nowadays, the wait is only 4 days long. Marble is still associated even today with power, loftiness, luxury, durability, timelessness. Symbolically, the lamp combines the antiquity of marble with the modernity of the aluminium dome and the stainless steel stem. In the Flos factory, everything is made to measure, stamping and shaping the metal, bending the steel. Turning and embossing the aluminium, cutting, polishing, glazing, reflective paint. With such pampering by the workers from the Brescia region, steel and aluminium become sumptuous adornments. Is it possible to have a suspension lamp without making a hole in the ceiling? The Castiglioni brothers wondered. They wanted to liberate the dining room table from the traditional light inevitably attached to the ceiling. The arc brings the source of light right to the middle of the table. You can sit down to eat and someone can still go around and serve you, Achille explained. The Castiglioni brothers wanted to be able to change the space by changing the suspension lamp's position whenever it was needed or desired. Their solution was an offset arm, similar to the wall lamp created by Charlotte Perriand in 1938, or the lamp designed by Jean Prouvé a decade or so later. On both of those models, the light could be moved along a 2-meter radius. But fastening the lamp to the wall still meant making holes. With Arco, no more holes in the wall or the ceiling. It was a new kind of suspension lamp, adjustable at 3 different heights. Clearly, however, its main purpose was to light up a dining table or a low coffee table. The Japanese version was even lower, by another 10 centimeters.
Rond.
Rond.
Round.
Rund.
Crook.
Rotondo.
In terms of structure, Arco's basic shape is the rounded arch. It describes a perfect circle. The sphere and its 2-dimensional counterpart, the circle, represent plenitude, unity, perfection. And wherever it is found, roundness fills us with comfort. The ancient Greeks considered the sphere to be the perfect shape. And since the Earth is perfect, it must be round. Good and goodness are round. The creation is round. Our primordial abode is round, as are certain types of alternative abodes. It always feels good to go under something rounded. That's what the valiant Roman soldiers must have felt when they marched under the magic arch to cleanse themselves of their destructive impulses. Arco was the first streetlight to be brought into the home. The Castiglioni brothers were inspired by the Parisian lampposts they saw in the late 30s. The tall, familiar object we know as a lamppost was once a person, the lampidarium, whose job was to hold a light up in front of the emperor during religious services. In the Middle Ages, God was represented as a lamppost holding up 2 orbs, the sun and the moon. We now believe that matter and light in our universe came into existence 20 billion years ago. It took human beings 1 million years to figure out how to create light, in order to keep the night at bay and all of the fearful things it contains. Then came electric lighting.
I've got it!
In 1879, Edison and Swan invented the incandescent filament light bulb. It would revolutionize everyday life. Replacing the dirty, foul-smelling gas lamps would make the nights much more enjoyable. A sign of opulence during the post-war years, electric lighting has become banal, a seemingly inexhaustible utility.
Attention!
Pour bien voir clair, un éclairage central, même puissant, ne suffit pas. Pour vivre et travailler chez vous agréablement à toute heure, il faut aussi des lampes de complément judicieusement disposées. Dans la pièce commune, chacun doit pouvoir s'installer confortablement pour lire ou travailler.
The few hours that were gained at night were promptly lost on work. Electric lighting may be banal, but it hasn't lost its magic. Its bright intangibility continues to amaze us. In the early 60s, Italy was in need of modern lighting, and the field was wide open for creativity and innovation. Giacomo and Achille Castiglioni would design up to 10 lamps for the Italian company Flos. After his brother's death in 1968, Achille continued their work on his own. The forms were simplified to the extreme, in a quest for rationality. At first, there were not 2, but 3 Castiglioni brothers. Growing up with a sculptor for a father, they were surrounded by the fine arts. The 3 of them became architects before turning to design. Livio, the oldest brother, would leave the family nest to work for Fanola and Brion Vega in his field of predilection, radios. As a duo, Pier Giacomo and Achille pursued their research into areas such as spatial lighting, putting their ideas into practice at the Triennale di Milano, Italy's top design exhibition. With an architectural touch, their constellation of lights seems to sustain the modern atmosphere of the space. Their aim was always simplicity, which did not exclude wit or other references. Brera, for example, the oval lamp designed by Achille in allusion to the egg in Piero della Francesca's altarpiece and to his Madonna with the perfectly oval face. The brothers were interested in all the artistic adventures of their time. They liked the futurists, for instance Fortunato di Perro, movement, blades of light. The strange contrasts in the metaphysical painting of the Italian Giorgio G. Chirico. The holes on top of Arco's dome evoke the sculpture Light Space Modulator, used by Moholy Nagy in his experimental film from 1930. The orb of the reflector shade quivers like an atom, or cold as mobile, filmed in 1947 by Hans Richter. The Castiglioni brothers admired the little aluminium moon named Sputnik, the first object to be put into orbit by the Soviet Union in 1957. So, quite logically, they opted for a sphere-shaped reflector shade in polished aluminium. After all, this was the height of the space age. The Castiglionis were influenced by all of the avant-garde movements. They developed a certain attitude rather than any particular style. The subtle wit found in their objects establishes a bond of complicity with the user. Inspired by Marcel Duchamp's ready-made artworks, Mezzadro was created in 1957 by converting a tractor stool from the turn of the century. And in the same playful rationalist spirit, there was La Sella, a rocking bicycle seat.
La cosa importante è la progettazione sempre per componenti, componenti magari presi da altre produzioni per altre funzioni e traslati nella funzione di un certo sedile. Questo è un sedile per parlare al telefono a muro, uno parlava al telefono, e dove il materiale, in questo caso duro, materiale, aveva bisogno senz'altro di una forma molle per seguire la parte ergonomica del corpo. Questo avveniva anche in questo sedile. Insomma, Però non era per farne una produzione di migliaia, no, era proprio fare un lavoro di ricerca, ovviamente pagato dall'industria, che ci permetteva di giocare a studiare qualche cosa.
The Castiglioni brothers' meeting with the visionary entrepreneur Dino Gavina would be fundamental. The first fruit of their collaboration? The San Luca, an armchair stripped of its stuffing, which was a trifle subversive back in 1960. In 1962, Dino Gavina founded the company Flos to produce innovating lighting fixtures on an industrial scale. This was the beginning of an adventure that would bring Flos, the Castiglioni brothers, and their luminous ideas to the forefront of Italian design. The first lamp in the Flos series was Taraxacum, the dandelion flower, featuring a cocoon material that until then had been used mainly for packing. The strands of polymer fibre added to the frame are like a metaphor for the many strands of talent that were being woven together to form the company. Sergio Gandini joined Flos in 1964. He developed its potential for mass production. His son Piero is now the head of the company.
L'atteggiamento è sempre quello di legare la nostra ricerca di innovazione ai comportamenti delle persone rispetto agli oggetti che noi creiamo, modificando magari la materia, ma cercando sempre un filo conduttore di complicità con le persone che le usano. Non sono bersagli, non sono classificazioni di consumatori, sono persone. E per noi è un po' più complicato lavorare così, ma è anche molto più divertente, richiede un rischio intellettuale particolare.
In 1991, Piero Gandini brought out a very simple injection-molded polycarbonate lamp designed by Philip Stark, the Miss Sissy, which would become a bestseller. The ideas of the Castiglioni brothers continue to inspire many a designer. At times, there is a rather fine line between plagiarism, influence, and paying tribute, with Joe Colombo, for instance, or the LED lamp designed by Hans and Franz. And it is sometimes hard to decide whether it is an artistic or an industrial design approach. Some artists play with this ambiguity, such as Sebastian Hungerer and Rainer Keres, who use designer lamps in their installations. A constellation of Castiglioni-style ready-mades. A conglomeration by Tanaka Atsuko, in which light bulbs and neons are like paintbrushes coloring the air. In Liverpool, a utilitarian work created by Jorge Pardo is reminiscent of our urban streetlight-inspired Arco in a swirling monumental version. In the 60s, illumination became a work of art. Nearly Perfect Circles by Dan Flavin. Profusion of arcs, swerving and breaking off by François Morlet. Darkness offers Marco an infinitely renewable surface for his work, which is based on street art and tagging. In the playful spirit of its inspirers, Love Letter to the Castiglioni brothers, a lamp by Mollo design, blends simplicity with ingenuity and poetry. The glow light support comes from an actual byproduct of Arco's base. And enclosed in a simple envelope, the electroluminescent film softly glimmers, like a sort of memory candle.
My first is black, my second never goes out of fashion, my third was born 69 years ago, and my whole has won over more than 8 million people across the globe. The Solex, the embodiment of freedom in the post-war years, would become the requisite vehicle of priests, doctors, and sales reps in the late 1940s. It would transport workmen in the 1950s. The youth into the 1970s. And since the 80s, it has continued to enchant fans and collectors with its spluttering sound. The elegant line of a Dutch bicycle, concertina-shaped motor on the front wheel, swan-necked unisex frame, bicycle position obtained by pulling back the top of the carburetor, friction drive roller that transfers power to the wheel, chrome handlebars with reverse brake handles, leatherette panniers, pedal unit in stamped sheet metal, saddle sitting comfortably on springs, the principle behind the VéloSoleX is simplicity. Before becoming the name of a moped, Solex was a company founded in 1910 by two friends from Paris's top engineering school, Marcel Menesson, one of the most brilliant students, and Maurice Goudard, a visionary and avid inventor who fell in love very young with new locomotion. With a meager advance from Maurice's grandmother, the two friends founded their company around the invention of a centrifugal radiator. After a chaotic start, they were saved by a providential order after winning a competition held by the Paris Omnibus Company. Their radiator would equip the entire fleet of 400 buses. Maurice asked friends and family to find a name that would attract customers. His specifications were very precise. Be original, 2 syllables and 5 letters maximum, be euphonic, have no meaning, be pronounced the same in all languages. His elder brother suggested Solex. The legendary brand name was born. For several decades, Solex would manufacture radiators and carburetors. But Marcel had already applied for the first patents of his dream, a bicycle fitted with a simple and economical auxiliary motor. The oldest recorded bicycle dates from antiquity, where they used a contraption that moved on two wheels joined by a beam. Later, at the time of Confucius, wealthy Chinese traveled on a vehicle pushed by a servant. It wasn't until the early 1800s that the true ancestors of the bicycle appeared. Dandy horses like the Célérifère and the lion-headed Vélocifère, which were propelled by running. The bicycle as we know it today appeared in the 1860s when the Michaud brothers invented the pedal for their vélocipède. In a few short years, an avalanche of inventions perfected the bicycle. In the 1930s, a freestanding helper motor could be fitted to every type of bike. The motorized bicycle was born. Marcel Menesson pulled out his patents from 1916 and 1919 to make his dream come true. To make a bicycle with a fixed motor, a cyclomoteur, or moped adapted to the times.
Bicyclette, forme qui marche toute seule. Mofa, petit rad, Motor, Progression, Einfachheit, Velo, Qualität, Moteur, Simplicité, Riemenantrieb, Qualité, Freiheit, Transmission, Bewegung, Liberté, Räderwerk, Mouvement, Werk, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The first prototype of the Solex was born in December 1940. A feminist before its time, its shape meant it creased neither a priest's cassock nor a woman's skirt. Democratic. It was cheap to run at 200 miles to the gallon. Barely polluting, it aimed to please nature lovers. The ingenuity lays in joining the roller transmission system, until then reserved for motorized bicycles, to a solid casing in order to create a complete moped. The VéloSoleX prototype was developed in pilot production in 1942. A decree made the new category of motorized two-wheel transport official. The VéloSoleX went on sale in April 1946 at a price below the minimum wage. It was an immediate hit. Sales rocketed. The The competition soon replied, heavily influenced by the new star. Moto Becan's Mobilette became its fiercest rival.
La bicyclette à réaction. Un bricoleur ingénieux vient en effet de mettre au point l'adaptation au populaire vélo de 3 éléments de réaction placés à l'arrière. Grâce à eux, n'importe quel tocard peut atteindre 45 à l'heure. Vestige des géants de la route, que vas-tu devenir?
A brand new factory was built in Courbevoie near Paris, just for the VéloSoleX.
Alors je suis rentré chez Solex le 27 mars 1951. C'est-à-dire que j'ai travaillé chez VéloSoleX pendant 19 ans, 6 mois et 14 jours. Bon, on était jusqu'à 600 chez Solex. On ne travaille que par connaissance, on ne travaille pas du tout par embauche, non, on ne faisait pas d'annonce là-dessus. On faisait 40 moteurs à l'heure, par chaîne. Donc il y en avait 4. Et moi j'ai marqué le 1000e vélo. C'est moi qui l'ai composté, j'ai ton composteur. Tout le personnel de chez Solex, au bout de 2 ans d'ancienneté, avait son VéloSoleX gratuit. Ça, c'était la règle. On avait quand même des avantages qu'il n'y avait pas beaucoup ailleurs. Hein.
Mounted on a big-wheeled man's bike in black with gold trim, the motor was 45 cubic centimeters. After tests, it was decided to make the roller out of corundum, a hard-weaving synthetic stone.
Voilà.
By means of a shaft, the motor drives the roller, which, sticking to the wheel, transmits power to the wheel. The aim of the characteristic round motor casing of the VéloSoleX is to protect the crankshaft linked to the cylinder piston. Although the VéloSoleX makes some people wax lyrical, it is in fact an example of functionalist design. Proof of the perfection of the original design, its basic shape would stay the same until production ceased in 1988. Moreover, each part would evolve in efforts to improve simplicity, economy, and production efficiency. In 1973, Solex designers took the idea of simplification even further with a stowaway version. Dismantled in minutes, it folds in 2 on hinges, allowing those out for a ride on country lanes to pop it straight back into the trunk of their car. Maurice Goudard was a shrewd businessman who heralded the free market and service providing of the future. He completed the perfectly functional vehicle designed by Marcel Menesson by adding a few inventive ideas. Since its rise to the top, the Solex has offered various accessories. The Solex was customizable before its time, and the company became a pioneer of after-sales service in France by opening a network of VéloSoleX service stations. The inventors created Solexine, an oil-gasoline mix that could be stored in a can fitted to the front wheel in case you ran out. The Solex became an unfaltering companion. It would ride through 30 years of post-war boom, transporting several generations of workers, friends, and lovers.
Une joie énorme inondait le monde. À Londres, à New York, à Paris, les peuples acclamaient cette grande minute où pour la première fois depuis plus de 5 ans, les hommes de toutes les nations retrouvaient le droit de vivre et de croire au bonheur, le droit à la vie, le droit au lendemain, le droit à l'espérance.
After the war, getting mobile symbolized France's newfound freedom of movement. But the country was financially crippled and its infrastructures in ruins.
Pardon, monsieur, l'allée du château, s'il vous plaît.
Connais pas. Qui est-ce que vous cherchez?
Monsieur Marcel Sinel.
Monsieur Marcel Sinel? Oh, il habite tout à fait en haut.
Living conditions remained hard. Rationing continued until the end of 1948.
Avez-vous des tickets de matière grasse, le pain, la viande, le lait? Tant pis si je vous embarrasse. Avez-vous des tickets? C'est très drôle. Ah, ça c'est pas drôle du tout. Pourquoi on fait de tam-tam à la fin là?
As the 50s dawned, Second World War wounds were only just beginning to heal. The Solex was part of the rebuilding process. Industry was relaunched. France attained a full employment economy as men and women picked up their tools again. Productivity doubled, as did production. With the appearance of new technologies, the 50s opened the door to the consumer society and changed our daily lives. Incomes and standards of living continued to rise. The economic boom would last until 1974. The Solex had a role to play in the new individual mobility. In France, the proportion of income spent on transport rose from 5 to 8%. Vehicle design was faced with two possible directions. One, the aesthetic, influenced by America, and streamlining with its generous curves enabled by new stamping techniques imported from aeronautics. Or two, functionalism, design that shapes objects for simplicity in terms of use and production. The Citroën 2CV, the Volkswagen Beetle, and the Fiat 500 were all designed with this in mind, as was the VéloSoleX.
Prenons la route fleurie qui conduit vers le bonheur. Suivons-la toute la vie, main dans la main, cœur contre cœur. Avec vous, petit ami, le chemin sera trop court. Chante la route fleurie que nous suivrons, vous et moi. Suivons la route fleurie, suivons-la toute la vie, le cœur en joie, vous et moi.
Homo est là, la saleté s'en va.
La pile Vondaire ne s'use que si l'on s'en sert.
Extra, extra, extra.
Slogans and graphics shared top billing in new-style advertising. And the bike that rides itself didn't skimp on either. René Ravo, an illustrator born in the early 1900s, would create the lion's share of VéloSoleX ads. Added to this was a promotions policy that was way ahead of its time. The VéloSoleX joined the publicity caravan on the Tour de France. One was presented to the winner of the French Tennis Open. The Solex company encouraged road safety with a series of slides for its customers and built cars with Solex motors to teach children. In the 1970s, Solex ads adopted a more graphic style and inspired its contemporaries.
Le loto? Qui sait ce que vous ferez quand vous aurez gagné?
Having accompanied a half-century of activity, the Solex had attained mythical status and symbolized friendly transport. It would now be immortalized in comic books, movies, and art. In 1989, the Cartier Foundation honored it.
Ceci, c'est une sculpture signée César à partir de 5 Solex. Quelques-uns des derniers Solex, revus et corrigés par des artistes modernes, qui sont exposés jusqu'au 19 février à la Fondation Cartier.
Ça se produit-là, ça signifie sûrement la rencontre entre un vélomoteur et une Mercedes, sûrement.
Le cadeau idéal, en tout cas, messieurs, pour les femmes qui ont tout. Laurence, Viviane et Francine, je suis sûr qu'un Solex de Cartier, ça vous ferait aussi plaisir qu'une bague ou un collier.
Dans mon oncle, le Solex de Hulot, c'est vraiment le véhicule de la liberté, des chemins buissonniers, d'échapper au conformisme bourgeois. Mais il n'est pas du tout anti-moderne, Tati, puisqu'il la crée, cette modernité, dans ses films. Et le Solex va faire le lien d'un monde à l'autre. Et d'ailleurs, c'est comme ça que le déplacement de Hulot se fait, que le regard de Hulot va dans cette bascule-là. Quand la voiture du directeur, de M. Harpel, arrive devant l'usine Plastac pour prendre sa place, le petit rectangle qui est destiné à la voiture du directeur. Et là, en même temps que M. Harpel, nous découvrons, comme spectateurs, que le Solex est installé sur la place la place de parking du directeur. Ça, c'est une des formes de l'insolence. Et je pense que le Solex, pour Hulot, le Solex pour Tati, c'est aussi cette espèce de bonne distance libertaire, ce côté insolent, ce côté... au fond, il trouve sa place grâce au Solex.
The Solex has kindled a flame of passion in collectors. Some have even gone as far as creating their own supermodels. Almost 1,500 pieces of gold plate cover the gold Solex. The Solex continues to inspire visionaries. In the early 2000s, production of the Solex, which had ceased in France in 1988, was started again by Jean-Pierre Bansard, who decided to update it to our day and age.
C'était un jour de grève et je remontais les Champs-Élysées en voiture et j'étais bloqué. Et tout d'un coup, à côté de moi est passée une femme en Solex et je me retourne vers une collaboratrice qui était à côté de nous et je lui dis « ça c'est l'avenir ».
Zero noise, zero pollution, zero maintenance. The e-Solex allied the Solex myth with contemporary life.
D'abord, c'était le nom. Le nom Solex est un nom mythique. C'est un nom culte en France, primo. Secondo, il lui fallait un design nouveau, parce qu'on vit en l'an 2000. Et troisièmement, écologie par la batterie.
Weighing in at a mere 40 kilos, and with 2 hours and 15 minutes of autonomy, at an average speed of 45 kilometers per hour, it is fitted with a removable battery that you can charge at home or in the office like a cell phone. Jean-Pierre Bonsard, aware of the modernity of the object, turned to Pininfarina to design it.
C'est assez spectaculaire de voir un bonhomme qui a dessiné à la Ferrari et d'arriver avec un vieux VéloSoleX et de dire « faites-moi quelque chose ». Et ben, ça a été une histoire d'amour entre lui, le Solex et moi.
The famous Italian car designers team of engineers and graphic artists found ways to integrate new technological solutions while keeping in spirit with the original product. The Solex, like the baguette, the camembert and the beret, has become a symbol of France. A pioneer in ecology, road safety, economy, the values it represents resonate in this time of crisis and new awareness. As Marcel Menesson said, it's simple to complicate things, but it's complicated to simplify them.